I decided not to talk about television or film or something that I supposedly knew about, and I decided to talk about something that I wanted to know more about. I wanted to explore the area of our earliest childhood memories, using my own experiences, but then doing a bit of amateur research as well, and hopefully give you a chance to think about your early childhood memories. But I would warn you that if there are any psychologists or psychiatrists in the audience tonight, you might want to go for a short walk while you avoid listening to a layman try and make something way too simple. So my Pecha Kucha is called Are My Early Memories Real? And it started out as a reasonably simple question that opened up a few more doors that I'll be touching on. Okay, let's cue the show. So I want you to have a think about what your earliest childhood memory is. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you what it is, but I'd like you to think about how old you were. Probably a little older than this guy here. Apparently most of us have no memories before the age of 3, and quite a few from 3 to 6. I have an early memory of my grandmother having made me a special birthday cake, a chocolate cake that was made like a train with wheels and things. But I began eventually to wonder whether I'd made up this image somehow, because I was looking through an old photo album and I came across a photo in the album that actually showed me on the back lawn beside the cake. And I believe now that I didn't really remember the memory. I think what happened is I saw the photo in the album and I realised that this was something, and someone said, oh, your grandma made that cake and that's how it all happened. And it wasn't really a real memory at all. I think I invented the memory. But in contrast to the cake story, I knew that there were no photos of me at the boarding school I went to when I was 5 to 7. So when I was in Christchurch a while ago, I did a little bit of a recce and I tried to visit the place where the school was. And I went there, but it seemed like it was the wrong place, which was weird because I had the right street address. And I remember playing marbles on the gravel outside the school and cutting through the nuns' garden between classes. And I have a very strong visual image of the school. It was a big, very big brick building with a massive dormitory. But then when I actually got to the school and realised it, and here's the actual school building that I found when I was there. You'll see it's a very small wooden house, really. And I know that I was kind of small, and I know that everything looks a lot bigger when you're very young, but it was also very different to my image of the school. And I'm going to come back to this question of how accurate our memories are. So when I started doing this research, I discovered that there were 3 categories of memories. And this one down in the bottom corner, this is my idea of food, by the way, processed themes. And weirdly, this one in the corner is a sort of about Mazar material and food and things, and it's probably something to do with Heston Blumenfeld and molecular gastronomy, and it's really complicated. This one's a lot easier to remember. I don't really need to talk about this. It's pretty obvious. Most of your positive memories are probably about things like this: playing with people, being helped for, cared for, successful mastery of something like teleporting is pretty positive. Negative memories is the pretty obvious list as well, and I probably don't need to go into that. There's things that you'd expect: being sick when you're a child, going to hospital, being injured, being hurt, people dying, maybe moving house is the sort of thing to do with losses. Broken trust includes things like being neglected or physically attacked. A number of my strong early memories are to do with the deaths of people, which is very, very common. And at the age of around 9, I have a great visual memory of just sitting on the steps of the school at Mangatanoka and a teacher telling me that my grandmother had died. And this memory of loss and death obviously sits very clearly in that negative department. And apparently we're a lot more likely to remember events that feel negative, particularly ones that come from unresolved issues, which kind of makes sense because I think I do have a few issues around death and funerals and things. But the other thing is, really, how accurate are these memories? And if you look at my memories, you can see already that they're a bit of a mixed bag on that score. And if you research this area like I did, you come quite quickly across a very interesting woman called Elizabeth Loftus, who was a cognitive psychologist. And she did a very interesting study where she got 24 people in 1995, and she did the study called The Formation of False Memories. And she got the parents of these people to provide her with 3 real memories and 1 false memory. And what happened was the false memory was about these kids getting lost in a shopping mall and included real details that they got from the family about what the name of the store was or what their brother and sister's name was, so that it sort of felt a little bit real. And then they told these kids that all 4 of these memories were real and had been supplied by their parents. And the interesting thing was that of these participants, 7 out of 24 of these people said they remember this event. And quite a lot of them added a whole lot of interesting details about this supposedly thing in which they'd been lost, and sort of extrapolated on it to quite some extent. And so Elizabeth Loftus has got a quote about memory that I really rather like, and I'll read. "Many people believe that memory works like a recording device, like a tape recorder, but it's not the case. Memory is constructed and reconstructed. It's a lot more like a Wikipedia page, a transcription of history created by multiple people's perceptions and assumptions that's constantly changing." So why did she do this particular experiment? In the early 90s, she was invited to be an expert defense witness in a trial where a woman claimed that 20 years before, when she was a child, she'd seen her father rape and murder her friend. Now, she'd only recently recovered this memory when she was undergoing therapy, and she was the actual only witness to the crime. And so Loftus gave evidence saying that she was a bit doubtful about this entire thing, but she had to concede that there wasn't any research at the time about the particular memory the woman was claiming to have. And the guy was convicted and sent to jail, although 6 years later he was let off and was released on appeal. And around about that time in the 90s, there were an awful lot of other people making similar accusations based on recovered memories of trauma. And she believed that a lot of these were probably created by the suggestive techniques that therapists use or encouraged in sort of self-help books. And so that's why she created the Lost in the Mall exercise. And extensions and variations of this over the years have all found that an average of about 1/3 of experimental subjects could become convinced quite easily that they experienced things in childhood that never actually happened, and even highly traumatic or highly impossible events such as the one there. So what did I decide after all this through my very amateur investigation? You can see me there with my special hat on. I think maybe don't visit your old schools or examine your positive memories too closely. Maybe think about your negative memories and any work that needs doing there, which might be useful. And if you don't like what I've been telling you, well, don't worry, you'll probably forget it anyway.